Hi, Professor Yerby here again. I wanted to go through a white paper that I came across when creating some material for our module on backup, replication, disaster recovery, business continuity. So I found a white paper by David Davis, who is a VMware expert, and just kind of wanted to go through it and discuss some of the 10 best practices that David Davis recommends. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I won't go through everything on here, but I will provide this document for you to read through at your own time. But I'll go through and just kind of read the backups or read the recommendations, and then give you some of my thoughts on there. Um, Again, I think this is an opinion piece by David Davis, and this is also an opinion piece by me. So I'm going to give my opinion on his opinion, and then you form your opinion from that. So the first thing is use a backup tool that understands your virtual infrastructure. I completely agree with that. So he goes in here to say just because something says that it can back up your virtual infrastructure doesn't mean that it does it well. So when you're choosing your backup tool, your backup strategy for disaster recovery or business continuity, make sure that you're using something that's optimized for the type of infrastructure that you have. Uh, so, so I really agree with that one. And let's see. Next is don't use snapshots unless absolutely necessary. I mostly agree with this. So his reasoning for not using snapshots is that it takes up a large amount of disk space. Snapshots can be pretty convenient to go back in time to a certain configuration if you know that you're making some big change. Then a snapshot can be useful. What he recommends instead of using snapshots is to just make backups of the virtual machine. So I can see, you know, going either way with this one. So again, I kind of mostly agree with this one about do not use snapshots unless necessary. So and then he goes through on here and he talks about virtual machine backups can be done every few minutes and are the single best choice you need to be using to protect your virtual infrastructure from data loss. So if you combine this with some of the VSSS, the volume share shadow copy service, sorry, then I think that you can get some of these benefits that he's speaking of about real time on the fly backups. And I agree that this could be, somewhat cumbersome taking several snapshots. It just all depends on when you take them. I would never say completely avoid snapshots though. Now let's see. Load hypervisor tools in the guest OS. So for every guest operating system that you install, load the tools in the guest OS. Don't load them on your host OS or if you're running type 2. So I really agree with this one. So he's just saying, hey, look, we're running the tools inside of each guest operating system. Use a tool that offers offsite storage and replication. This is going to really depend on the type of strategy that you integrate for your backup. If you do it um, through online offsite storage, or if you use an older type traditional setup with tapes or hard drives or a SAN. Um, so I think just depending on your organization and the needs, that will kind of dictate how you do this. For most instances, I do like to use online, offsite, replicated, separated storage so that I back up my data, my systems, I back them up online, and then the service that I kind of outsource that to, they take care of replicating that to one of the other secured facilities that's a good distance apart. And you know anytime you're outsourcing something to a third party, always be careful to really read through those SLAs, those service license agreements. So again, mostly agree with this one. And I think you maybe were expecting me to disagree with more when I kind of gave it a caveat at the beginning. But like I said, this guy's a VMware expert, so I'm just giving my opinion on his opinion. So ensure that your servers can be restored fast. So this is, again, comes into some of that SLA that I was speaking about just a moment ago. Your service license agreement, depending on what you agree to, what kind of downtime you're willing to accept. So having a local backup in addition to the online offsite backup may be something that you need to have. If you can only afford to be down for a few minutes, then you're definitely going to want to have some high-speed, real-time local backup. If you can afford to be down for a day and your online backup can send you all of your files to rebuild your servers in one day, then maybe that solution's okay for you. Really what you're going to be looking at is it's going to be a cost-benefit analysis. So you're going to see, what am I willing to spend? What kind of uptime do I need? What kind of recovery time do I need? What am I willing to invest in? Do I need, warm sites, hot sites, this whole thing? Guarantee that the operating system and apps inside the VM are recoverable. So yeah, I think that one's pretty common sense. So a periodic complaint of virtualization admins as their backup application performed a recovery, but once the VM was recovered and booted, the OS would not boot and the applications wouldn't run. So this goes into one of just the best practices of creating your disaster recovery, your business continuity plan. Is not only do you need to create these plans, document it, and make sure that there are distributed copies of the plan to the correct people, but you also need to test. And testing your BCP can really be one of the most painful things to do, especially the first time. But it's something that you really need to do. It's much better to test it and fail when there's not a real disaster than to never test it. Disaster happens and you're sitting out in the cold and you're really having some regret that you didn't test it before. So in your testing, just make sure that the applications, especially mission critical applications, are actually recoverable, that it works the way that you designed it or the way that you expect it to work. And so here it's going through, I think there may be some problems with Exchange, and so they're going through and they're giving some examples of Exchange not working correctly, which would probably be a mission critical kind of thing usually. 7. Keep options open with any to any backup and restore. So this is one of the big benefits of using virtualization, is that typically your operating systems, your virtual machines, are not hardware dependent. So you don't have to have the exact same server in your restore site. So just as you don't want a physical server backup program that will only restore backup data to the exact same physical server, you don't want a virtualization product that will restore VM backwards only to the same virtualization platform. So when it comes to disaster recovery, you can plan but never quite know what will happen. This is more reason you need a virtual infrastructure backup program that will restore to other hypervisors or physical servers. So again, this comes into one of those best practices of testing. Find out your limitations and find out the flexibilities that you're afforded by using virtual machines. The good news is through virtualization, you'll probably have a good bit more flexibility than you would with a traditional non-virtualized, installed one server, one operating system to one machine kind of setup. So the virtualization is good. Make sure it supports the cloud. Again, this is going to really depend on the type of business that you're in, the type of a strategic plan that your organization wants to go with. Uh, and when you say the cloud, what type of cloud are you talking about? Are you talking about your private cloud, a hybrid cloud, a completely public cloud? Do you always use this cloud, or is this something that's in the wings waiting for a disaster? So so this one I think is still one of those that is really going to depend on your organization if you follow this one of this David Davis's best practice of make sure it supports the cloud. So depending on what your business is and your tolerance for flexibility. Use deduplication and compression. Great recommendation, especially if you're paying for this storage. So this little graphic over here to the left, I think is a pretty nice simple graphic. So if you're sending all of this data and you're replicating all this data and you're paying for all of this storage, you're paying for this, you're sending this, you're taking all the time to restore this, to back this up, to pay for this, when you could get a tool, some sort of deduplication or compression, and you can move this huge block down to these smaller size here. You can really save yourself some time, some money, not only in a disaster, but just everyday use. You could save yourself, over here maybe backups are taking 12, 13 hours, and it's running into the next business day because you're backing up and you're sending such large data sets, plus you're paying for all that storage if you're using the online offsite data backup. So great recommendation on this one, number 9. And let's see, number 10, safeguard your company's applications. So again, I think this is kind of common sense, and I agree with this one. So he talks about the volume shadow service that I spoke about earlier. So make sure backups have integrity. So again, we come back to our CIA at all time. So the whole thing of backup is the availability, but also integrity, and then safeguarding your applications. So overall, just wanted to go through these with you. For the most part, I agreed with the majority of them, and here is the author of this article. It's David Davis. Again, he's a VMware vExpert, and I just wanted to kind of go through and give my opinions on his opinions so that you can form your opinion. So thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks, and have a great day.